All right, interest of time, it is 6 o'clock, and I know that time is precious. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you. We have another dozen or so parents who are watching virtually, so that's really cool. Yeah, they're able to offer that. So without further ado, I'm going to let you just rock and roll and take it over. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Teresa Stan. I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of the LRJ Foundation for Mental Health, Wellness, and Suicide Prevention Educational Presentations, and we're a mobile educational organization that travels throughout schools just like this, throughout the state of Georgia, and also our chapter in Pennsylvania. So we started 6 years ago, and we're in over 49 schools in Pennsylvania and growing here rapidly in Georgia. We do elementary, middle school, high school, college presentations, parent universities. We work with first responders, veterans. So we have a range of presentations. Of course, from the levels from elementary up to high school and college, they're all age appropriate, and they're very particular to what the school needs. So working with Ms. Perkins and the school district here on some of the concerns and to bringing in the mental health and the wellness aspect, stress management. So we're really excited for next week. We're going to be presenting to 8th grade students on mental wellness and stress management. So that's going to be really exciting. And then we hope to expand to the other grades here at the middle school and into the elementary and all the way up to high school as well. But today's presentation is going to be really aimed towards parents educating you on the mental health of our youth, and also the stress management care and self-care for yourself as parents for everything that we deal with in life. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our mental health professional, Sonona Williams, and she's going to be leading you through this presentation. The presentation is for you guys. So at any point you guys have any question or any clarification or concern about a topic that's why you're here tonight, feel free to make this, an open discussion. That's what we're all about.
Good evening. Everybody hopefully got here nice and dry. I was telling Teresa I was very impressed that traffic wasn't as bad. I come from Snellville, and I was like wondering, oh my God, am I leaving early enough to get here? Because when I used to work in Alpharetta, it took me forever to get to and from work. So I'm very happy to be here. I am a licensed professional counselor, and I've been honored to work with Teresa and the LRJ Foundation. I started with them last May. And so hopefully tonight, I want this to be interactive, so please ask questions if you don't understand anything or you need some clarification. And I look forward to presenting this information to you. I tried to memorize this next slide here, and I could not do it, so I'm going to read it. And then ask the question, what does it mean to be a parent in 2018? So what you have to do is you have to make sure your child's academic, emotional, psychological, mental, spiritual, physical, nutritional, and social needs are met, while also being careful not to overstimulate, understimulate, improperly medicate, helicopter, or neglect them. Provide a screen-free, processed food-free, GMO-free, negative energy-free, plastic-free, body-positive, socially conscious, egalitarian, but also authoritarian, nurturing but fostering independence, gentle but not overly permissive, or a multilingual home, preferably on a cul-de-sac, with a backyard, 1.5 siblings, spaced at least 2 years apart for proper development, and remember to give them some coconut. So we got a lot that we have to do. And, we think that's stressful for us, right? Well, what are our kids experiencing? What are some of the things that they find stressful? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a video where our teenagers give us an idea of what is stressful for them. Am I in your...
As teenagers, what is there to worry about? I have a lot of friends that are worried about terrorism and violence.
Peer pressure, drugs, alcohol.
I think there's more competition nowadays to go the best college, to make the best SAT score, since everybody's trying to be the best.
I've been running for practice and schoolwork and sleep, and everything, so it's a lot of pressure out there.
I expect myself to do well. I don't want parents to know that smart, so they expect me to do well too.
Everybody expects something of you, and it's hard to live up to everybody else's standards.
You want to be like better than everybody else, or I know I do. I want to be like on top of the pile.
Sometimes I feel like I have so much stress on me, and at this age, I should be like enjoying myself, but sometimes I don't feel like I'm enjoying life as I should be.
After what's happening with these kids is that they don't think they're good enough. And somehow or another, they're thinking, I can just get it right, get it right, get it right. Have all A's, all hundreds, I will be okay.
Many teens push themselves too hard, and then there's pressure from parents and teachers.
There's a lot of competition out there, and there's a lot of push from adults and parents for children to do more.
It's fun to be involved in school, in sports, the play, or band, but it can get to be too much. Parents know that from experience, and they know that sometimes choices have to be made.
You gotta do what you can and let the rest go. It's a tough lesson though. It's a hard thing to learn.
Kids don't often have the number of hours in a day to do what they need to do. So we can certainly help on looking at scheduling and cutting out things that aren't necessarily very essential.
But when it comes to schoolwork, there isn't a lot that can be cut. There will always be homework, projects, and tests. Lizzie feels the stress physically whenever she takes a test.
I stress. I have horrible stress. I will sit and contemplate over it. It will give me a headache. I get extremely sweaty. Like my hands will sweat. I won't even be able to hold my pencil. I have to sit and wipe my hands
And she's not alone. A lot of kids have serious anxiety before an exam.
Sweats, vomiting, sleep disturbances. We see a lot of that.
People get stressed out and just totally fall the test.
A lot of the time I'll stay up really late and I'll do flashcards and whatever, and then when it comes to the test I can sort of forget.
According to one study, a protein called PKC may be responsible for short-term memory loss.
Unpredicted stress or unexpected events over which we have no control can activate levels of PKC and cause some of the forgetfulness and the scatteredness that we all feel when we're really stressed. I thought it was kind of validating that it's not just, oh, we're crazy and scattered, but there's really a reason why we tend to lose it a bit when we are, or not be more forgetful, when we're overstressed and overstated.
So our kids face a lot of stressful things. So what I hope to do tonight is to share with you just a little bit about what mental health is, what it looks like, and then give you some coping skills and some ways to start some conversations with your children, so that you can be a little bit more aware, as if you don't have enough to worry about, but just making sure that their mental health is as good as it can possibly be. When we take a look here, this is the wellness wheel, and we share this with your students whenever we talk with them, and we ask them, what happens if any of these areas are out of balance? Because when we look at this, these are all the areas that impact their whole total wellness. Environmental things, intellectual, so learning at school, their physical health, their social health, occupational, spiritual, as well as their emotional. And the World Health Organization tells us that being in a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being is not merely the absence of illness or disease. So in order to have total wellness, we have to make sure that all these things are working properly together. But what happens when they're not? That's when we start to notice things that are mental health. What is mental health? When you hear that term, what kind of things come to mind? Anybody? So is it good? Or is it bad? I think there's a stigma attached to when we hear mental health or mental illness. What it is it's our thoughts, our feelings, actions, and behaviors in response to life situations. And everybody has mental health. Some of us have really good mental health, and there are others who have poor mental health. But we can impact how our mental health impacts other things in our life. So we can learn proper coping skills, but our mental health can impact everything. It impacts our actions, our jobs, our behaviors, how we interact with others, and what goes on in our body physically. So there's a lot of physical symptoms that can be found with mental illness, and we'll look at some of those as we go forward. And also, mental health can be caused biologically, so you can pass it down. It's genetically and also environmental. So when I think of environmental, those are things that happen that we can't control. So when we turn on the TV and we hear about another school shooting, that increases our stress levels in us and our children because there's a fear that now comes up, so that impacts our mental health. And these are some of the more common diagnoses. Which do you think are the two that we see most in our youth today? Anxiety and depression. Those are, when they come into my office, those are the two main things, but I'm also seeing an increase in disordered eating, and also in post-traumatic stress disorder. And a lot of times people think that that just is as a result of something major. It can be something minor. A divorce can cause a child to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's not just the big things, we have to be paying attention to the smaller things that are impacting our children. Some other things that can impact their mental health. A lot of kids today are dealing with the LGBTQ issues, self-esteem, bullying, things that are going on at home, and if they suffer some trauma or violence. So these are things, and the biggest on this list to me right now is bullying. And we're going to go more into that because there are so many different ways that our children are being bullied, and sometimes we miss it. I'm going to give you some things to just kind of pay attention to and look out for so that you can be aware of what's going on. What is stress? Now, I know everybody in here has experienced stress, so somebody can tell me what is stress? When you hear that word, what does that mean?
You're feeling anxious when you don't know how to do things because you can't think.
Right. So it's the way our brain responds to a demand that we place on it. Is it possible to have positive stress?
Yes.
What do you think is an example of positive stress that your kids might endure? Studying for a test. And that's actually one that we give them the example of the difference between stress and anxiety. So stress, they have midterms coming up, right? So they're like worried about it that week. So what happens is their focus goes up, their study habits increase, and they're able to retain that information. But when they take the test, they're good. They're able to relax. Somebody struggling with anxiety is going to start worrying about that test 2 months from now, and they're not going to be able to focus. They're going to ruminate. They're going to have negative thoughts. I'm going to fail this test. I'm never going to be smart enough. And they go through this negative thought process and thought cycle, and that's where the anxiety kicks in. So recognizing if they're stressing way far in advance, you're probably dealing more with anxiety than just something that's causing them a little bit of stress. Talking to them and just finding out where they are, what their thoughts are, helps you to identify what's going on with your children. What to look for in yourself as well as others. Stress can show up in many different ways, and we heard it in the video with one girl, her hands were sweating all the time, upset stomach. They'll be not sleeping. So if you notice that they're angry and irritable, and not just your normal teenage irritability where they don't want to be around you, but where everything irritates them. They may be dealing with a lot of stress, and that's something even in yourself. And the longer we have stress, that can impact us physically as well as our physical health. Common cold, the flu, you'll have it longer. Your body is not as able to receive those vaccinations because of the stress levels, so they're less effective on you. And the stress can cause strains on your body that can lead to more serious health conditions, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, and other illnesses. Some of the risk factors that we talk about are alcohol or drug abuse. If there's a family history of that, that's something that your child, that puts them at a higher risk for developing a mental illness. Past history of attempted suicides, genetic predisposition. Females are 3 times more likely than males to attempt suicide. And suicide, 90% of those who actually complete suicide have a diagnosable and treatable mental health condition that has gone untreated. And it's because so often we have this stigma. We're afraid to say something's wrong, so we kind of try to push it under the table or not pay attention to it. But if we treat it and diagnose it, then we can reduce that number of those who are taking their lives by suicide. What age group do you think has the highest suicide rate?
It varies, but it starts from
20, what'd you say?
9 years old. They're starting really young now.
They are starting really young. So it's really like 15 to 24 is where we see the highest number for suicide, and we'll look at some slides here just to look at suicides here in Georgia as we go a little bit further into the program. Bullying. Most of us think back to when we were growing up, bullying was at school. You know, there's the cool kids who would push, hit, kick, trip, make fun of. It was harmful and it could leave indelible marks on us. But now we have social and cyberbullying. And a lot of times parents are like, well, what is that? Social bullying, you know, is where your kids are suddenly alienated. They're the only child that's not invited to the party. They're the only child that all of a sudden nobody wants to hang out with. They're sitting by themselves at lunch. And cyberbullying, this is where, for me as a parent, it's important. I don't care what my kids say. I check all their social media. I have to have a password or else they can't have it. And I got really smart because I figured they sneak. So they have to allow one family member to friend them. So if I'm not on that, I'm not on Snapchat, but my sister is. And I have another sister on Instagram. So whatever they do, somebody always sees it. But cyberbullying, that is becoming a very, very serious thing that we have to deal with. And it is leading to a lot of kids who are feeling isolated and alienating themselves. And it's leading to suicide because they are being bullied and there's no face behind it. But negative things are coming at them from all directions. So it's really important to just pay attention to what your kids are doing on social media. These are some things that, as a therapist, that we notice that are common for children of different age groups. I'm not going to read all of them, but most of your kids are middle schoolers, so we're looking at the ages of 8 and 11 to 12 to 18. And some of the things that they worry about, being sick, not being accepted by their peers, wondering what people think about how they look, and as they get older, the fear of violence and global things. So it's really important, and I was surprised when I watched the video that we saw just a little bit ago to hear the people talking about how afraid they were of terrorism. Because I know that's something I worry about, but I never thought about my children being concerned and being afraid of, is this going to happen to me? Am I going to go to school and somebody's going to come into my school and harm me? So, but these are just some things, and even as they get older, they may grow up, go to college, but they're still struggling with, what's my life purpose? You know, am I going to get a job? What's it going to be like to be an adult? I wish somebody had given me a class on what it's like to be an adult when I was a teenager, because I thought, I just get to make money and do whatever I want. I didn't think about the bills that came with the money. So. We'll come back to this one because I like it, so hopefully we'll have time to read it.
If you guys want, this is a really great, if you don't have time to do it, I know Katie's going to be posting the slides up on the website through the parents portal. And when you get a chance, check this Inside Out video. It's like a voiceover from the movie clip, and it really goes inside the minds of our youth. It gives a nice depiction of stress and anxiety of what a child's going through on a daily basis. So it's really cool.
And if you haven't seen Inside Out, it'll make you want to go watch it because that's a great, great movie. Great, great movie. All right, so let's talk about some signs and symptoms that show up in men and women, as well as our children. So men, how many of us know that men suppress their feelings and are less likely to ask for help? Is that a surprise to anybody? No? It's also harder to recognize, especially when we're thinking about depression and anxiety, because for men, it may come across as anger or agitation. And they also are at increased risk for using substances to cope with the depression and the anxiety that they're struggling with. And with women, we tend to ruminate. So we go over and over and over trying to figure it out, and we just get into this negative thought cycle, and we just can't find our way out of it. We start to feel worthless. We start to feel guilty because we're neglecting something else because we're worried about what we're doing. Our hormones, Lord knows how much they impact us. They can have us all over the place. And then we have to deal with work, home, children, and our husbands or our spouses or whoever our significant other. But some of the things that we share in common is insomnia, increased fatigue, loss of interest in things we used to enjoy doing, not able to concentrate, and the overeating. Some people undereat. Myself, I'm an overeater. So when I'm stressed or if I'm worried, I tend to eat, and then that's when I know, oh, something's going on. I got to dig out what the root cause of it. So paying attention to those things in yourself will make you more aware even in your children. And we also, both men and women, will struggle with suicidal thoughts. when the depression or anxiety becomes too overwhelming. In our children, it looks a little bit different. Younger children might pretend to be sick a lot. They don't want to go to school. They have vocal outbursts. They cling. They're very clingy to parents. They don't want to let go. They don't want you to leave them. And then they have this really, really strong worry that you're going to die. As they get older, they're going to sulk, and this is where it begins to look like, is this teenage behavior or is this depression? But they may be a little more difficult to diagnose because some of their symptoms do look like normal teenage behavior. Sleeping, they like to sleep. But if they're sleeping all the time and you're noticing that they're not doing the things that they used to enjoy, so once they were the star of the football team and they have no interest in football all of a sudden, or she was a cheerleader and now she doesn't even want to go to a game, let alone talk about cheering. There's something else going on and you want to have a conversation with them. By age 15, girls are twice as likely than boys to struggle with anxiety or depression. And 1 in 10 kids will develop some kind of depressive disorder by the age of 16. Suicide in America. This is one that shocked me when I first saw these slides. In Georgia alone, suicide is the 11th leading cause of death. And it's the 3rd leading cause of death in people ages 10 to 24. So when we're thinking about that, and it's the 2nd leading cause from 24 to 34, that's where things are really getting stressed. But that really worried me when I saw the ages 10 to 24, because we're missing what's going on with our kids. If they're feeling that bad, there's no other way they can get out except for taking their own life. And in the state of Georgia, this was the rates of suicide from 2012 to 2017. So between January and October of last year, 38 children in Georgia took their own lives. And it was estimated that 60 would take their lives by the end of last year. And if you look at the numbers, it's increasing. So we have to start talking about this, not just amongst ourselves, but with our kids. So what happens if you or somebody you know is struggling with a mental health issue? What should you do? First thing is take it serious. Never downplay it. Take it serious. Acknowledge their pain. Know that others will take you seriously if it's something you're struggling with yourself. Reach out. Ask for help. If you don't know where to turn, I'm sure here at school there are counselors who have resources. There are hotlines that you can call, the 1-800 suicide hotline. Try to avoid fixing or masking your pain with drugs or alcohol because that just intensifies the problem and makes things worse. And just talk to somebody. It doesn't matter who it is, a friend, a cousin, a relative. Talk to somebody and just let them know what you're struggling with and encourage that with your children. Coping skills. Learning coping skills is something that's very important. Oftentimes we develop negative because we try to figure it out on our own. And when we're doing that, we do things like we have the potential to physically hurt ourselves and others because we don't know how to handle these stressors on our own. And what they can look like, it seems like it's a relief. And when I get teenagers that come into my office and parents who are distraught because they're cutting, and most of the time the parents are thinking, oh my God, my child is suicidal. Not all children who are cutters are suicidal. But cutting is a way for them to release that pain. It gives them something else to distract them from what's going on, but that's not a positive way of dealing with that negative energy and the depression. So we have to find some things for them to do that are more positive, that ensure our safety. And some things that I encourage them to do, journaling, listening to music. They love it when I tell them they can punch on pillows. I tell every child I work with, you can punch a pillow, you can punch a sofa cushion, you can't punch a wall, and you can't punch your brother or sister. But you can punch a pillow if you need to, scream or yell on the pillow. If you need to go out in your backyard and just scream because you're frustrated, scream, let it out. And that goes for us as parents as well, because sometimes we get very frustrated. But if we help them to learn to develop positive coping skills, and especially if they see us having positive coping skills, they're going to model that behavior. So if they see you, instead of yelling when you get mad, if they see you take a couple of deep breaths and calm down, they're going to notice that and they're going to start doing those same things. there's an exercise that we taught at West Forsyth High School during exams called the chocolate mindfulness, where we have them take a piece of chocolate and focus on that chocolate. So if you start finding ways to do mindful things, and do we have mindfulness coming up? Yes, okay. We'll talk more about it, but what that is, for example, the chocolate, I had them hold it in their hand. Just look at it. What does it look like? Focus on that chocolate, then open it. What does it sound like? What does it smell like? You're in the moment. Then I had them put it in their mouth, and they couldn't chew it. They just had to, what's the taste? What's it doing as it melts in your mouth? What are you feeling? What other senses are now heightened? And then once you finally did swallow the chocolate, what were you thinking? Did you want another piece? So focusing on what's in the moment. If they see you doing those things and calming yourself, they're going to learn those kind of skills as well. So some things that you can do that are positive coping skills: self-soothing, calming, learning to calm yourself down. Babies do this, which I think is very interesting. They do it with infants, but then somewhere along the line, they get very used to us doing it for them, and they stop. Distraction. If you're stressed about something, focus on something else to take your mind off of it. Do the opposite action of what you want to do. So if you want to punch the wall, do something positive. Maybe go for a run. Maybe yell as loud as you can or dance. Do something silly. Be aware of your emotions. It's okay to have them. It's when we try to deny them that they start to interrupt our life and what's going on. But if we're aware of them and we pay attention to them and acknowledge them, that's a better coping skill. And the mindfulness, being centered, paying attention to where you are in that present moment. And then having a crisis plan. So having a backup. Knowing who you can call if somebody's in trouble or if you're in trouble. The psychiatrist, a hotline, or even the ER. So here's some things, mindfulness techniques that you can think of. So how many of you can slow your breath down to where you're only taking 2 breaths in a minute? You can?
I'm a yoga instructor.
Oh, I might need you to come up here too. But that's, taking those slow breaths, and it's funny, there are apps on your phone now where you can set a time, it'll set a timer for you, and you inhale, and it's 30 seconds, and you exhale for 30 seconds. So learning to take those breaths throughout your day, start your day and end your day, helps you to start to relax. Making a list and tackling the hardest things first. Most of us want to do the easy stuff because we figure we can get that out of the way. But by the time we get to the hard stuff, we're burned out. So if we start with the harder things and work our way down, we feel like we've accomplished something, and that it decreases our stress and anxiety. Take breaks. A break every 10 to 15 minute break in an hour, even if it's just get up, walk, get a drink, come back, whatever. Take a few minute break just to allow your brain a chance to relax and de-stress. Our nutrition and exercise is very important. If your kids see you doing those things, they develop those habits as well. And planning something fun. We work so hard every day, and very, very infrequently do we take time to just play. Take some time to play every day, I think, then you'll be really good. And I think Teresa handed this out to you guys to take home, but these are some things that you can start a conversation with your kids. Because I don't know about you guys, but my kids will come home and say, how was your day? Fine. Yeah. How was your day? Good. And it's like, okay, can I get something more? So asking different questions. What made you smile today? Ooh, did anybody get in trouble? Who did you eat with? That starts a conversation with them, and they can't give you those one-word answers. So hopefully you'll take these cards, and that'll help you start some conversations with your kids at home. The most important thing is self-care. As a parent, if you're an empty cup, you can't pour into your kids. And it's like they tell us when you fly, put your mask on first before you do somebody else. So if you're empty and not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your child. So here's some things: having some positive adult relationships. Using your voice, that's my favorite thing to tell people. Use your voice, you got one, use it. Use it productively, not to tear others down, but to stand up for yourself. Be creative. have self-compassion. We're often very hard on ourselves, and then we wonder why our kids are so hard on them, because they learn it from us. Set limits and take care of your body physically. Go see her for yoga. She's stressed out and help you learn how to relax that mind, and that'll be a good thing, but take care of yourself. And be prepared. You never know when something's going to happen. Your child might come home and say that their best friend is struggling and is feeling sad. What do? Know the proper channels and chains of command at school. So who do you call here at school if there's an issue that you want to make sure they know about? What's the school's policy for mental health? And talk to your child about 2 or 3 coping skills that they can use every day to help them relax. And just be familiar with the indicators for depression and anxiety in yourself and others. And the other thing, the most important, is just communicate genuine concern. Kids know if you're fake. Just be real. You may not understand exactly what they're going through, but be empathetic and just listen to them. And you'll be surprised at how much information you can get when you do that. So you matter. Show empathy. Find your purpose. And offer mentorship. And make sure you tell others they matter. A smile at somebody can be the one thing that brightens their day. Thank you. Any questions, comments, and snide remarks? That's my husband's favorite. Gosh, you guys are so quiet. I'm used to it. But, well, I thank you. Appreciate you guys letting us come out. We'll have the slides on our portal. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to contact me or Teresa. We'd be happy to talk to you and offer any assistance that we can.
And just so you know, we are trying to make sure that we are teaching some coping skills as well. I think that has been the missing piece in a lot of schools I have been a part of. And so, starting with 8th grade and having some programs so that they can learn some coping skills. And we started this week with mindfulness, so we're learning right now how to breathe, and it's a little bit awkward, but I've already just had kids coming up to me in the hallways going, it's kind of weird, but it's good. I feel better. And one teacher came up to me today and said that her students were like, can we do this before our test? She was like, sure, why not? Okay. So, and I'm going to put a message in Friday notes where it's we have a community grant. So as soon as we can figure out how to do this, you'll have access to. So you'll be able to either practice it at home, or if you have younger siblings, there's a whole series for elementary students and whatnot in high school as well. So you'll have access to that. So we're trying, to do our part as well, because I think that we send messages in schools of, oh, you shouldn't be stressed. Here's all this work that you need to do. So, we're trying to be better about that. And if you ever do have concerns, anyone in administration, anyone in our counseling office, you can just, send us a note and we can, try to, meet with your child or talk to you or do anything that we can do to better partner and help. Because it is real, and it can be very hard on a family if you have someone who's going through that. The mindfulness, it is every day. We're practicing every day in homeroom. So homeroom is kind of a weird time that we didn't really have scheduled to do anything. So now we've broken it up with 10 minutes of mindfulness, and then 5 minutes to go to bathroom, locker, and all of those things, so that they have a set time to kind of regroup or whatnot. So it's every day. Yeah.
And sorry, and we can find the slides on the.
Yeah, can you listen to that?
It's going to be on Friday notes tomorrow.
Yeah. Is there a small part that can be maybe for years and international?
Do you have any other questions for me or for them? Okay. All right. So we will have this in Friday notes, and And then if you have anything else, I mean, you can always shoot me an email. Perkins R at Bolton. I get a million a day. I try to answer them. I promise. Of course. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.